Welcome to Tomorrow.Africa, the podcast that explores the possibilities and the potential of Web3 in the African continent. We believe that the future of Africa is bright and that emerging technologies such as blockchain can accelerate its development. We interview people who contribute to this breakthrough in Africa and around the world and who hold a positive vision for the future. My name is Yassir Lokman and I'll be your host for this podcast. In today's episode, I'll be interviewing Olubunmi Fabanwo. After some years spent in the banking industry, Olubunmi has joined Binance Africa as an affiliate program manager. Olubunmi is a firm believer in the use cases of blockchain in finance, the so-called Decentralized Finance or DeFi, and how it could be used as an inclusive mean to offer basic services to the populations that were so far excluded by the traditional banking system. We will be discussing the current adoptions of cryptocurrencies in African countries, how it could evolve in the future, the obstacles encountered, and what role could the banks possibly play in this disruption. Olubunmi will also be talking about how he educated himself on blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, what led him to make a fresh start in his career, and his vision for the future of Africa. Olubunmi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So good to be here.
Well, Olubunmi, you have an interesting background. You have been working in the banking sector and now working with Binance in Nigeria. Could you please walk us through your background and what got you interested about blockchain technology?
Okay, fantastic. So first, I would not be speaking on behalf of Binance while I'm speaking here. I'm speaking as a blockchain enthusiast, and anything I say in terms of anything that has to do with blockchain technology has no correlation with anything that Binance is putting out there. I'm only speaking by my own volition and as a blockchain enthusiast. So I spent 5.5 years in the banking industry. While there, I was just looking out for new technologies, things that would affect the future of banking. And yes, I discovered blockchain technology. That's a number of years ago. And I started reading about it, taking courses, trying to understand how exactly this can influence the future of finance generally. And yeah, that's how my own journey began. It's just being inquisitive. I was just very, very inquisitive about the technology, and I took some course certifications, and I thought that I could start something like this, like a podcast. So I started Banks and Blockchain. That's about a year ago. Then I was bringing in a lot of individuals. Along the line, I started learning more, and I started improving my connections in the blockchain space. And I think that's how the journey continued. Then I had to leave banking because I just felt like I could do more. Hence, I joined a fintech called Mono. It's a new banking platform, open banking basically. So I improved my experience in the fintech space I was a product partner with Mono, but I spent just a few months with them before joining Binance.
So before diving deeper into the use cases of blockchain technologies in the banking for financial services, let's first try to define what blockchain is. So without getting too technical, how would you define blockchain technology, its attributes, and how is it related to cryptocurrencies and DeFi, decentralized finance?
So without any technical terms, blockchain is basically a ledger or a shared database. And this ledger is digital, and it contains information on transactions, and it is duplicated basically across several nodes. We call them nodes, but in simple terms, they are just network of computer systems. So it's just the same way the internet works. And I imagine the internet as a digital ledger. I'm sure everybody knows what a ledger is. Then imagine that this particular ledger is decentralized, is distributed, and it is public oftentimes. So it's just a record, a ledger that holds records of different transactions, different information. However, this is decentralized and this is distributed. And relating it to what decentralized finance is just, I think, it's just a straight correlation. So because of the fact that this particular ledger holds information and it is decentralized, it gives way for decentralized finance. So right now, what we have, or what we've had in the last number of years, has been centralized finance. So we see that only certain organizations are qualified to deliver financial, to deliver financial services to people. However, with blockchain technology, it's breaking that whole barrier. So it's decentralizing the financial services space. So that means that as many organizations can get into that space, or as many individuals can even provide financial services. So, for example, as an individual, I can set up, I can set up a financial services platform that can give people loans without necessarily interfacing with them. And that's what blockchain is able to basically bring to us. So a lot of people are beginning to see that things cannot go exactly how it has always been. The face of money, the face of finance is beginning to change. And if you permit me to just take us a little back in history of how this whole thing started. So in 2008, a number of people or an individual sat down and looked at what had happened in the world in terms of finance, where we had the Great Recession. And this was because of the fact that a lot of banks had already invested people's monies on businesses that had gone bad, and then the government had to bail out these big banks, the Lever brothers. There was just a crazy situation when it came to finance, and these guys just like that. Why exactly should these big banks be the ones to determine the value of our money? Why should big banks failing make the whole economy go into a recession? And if you look at it critically, it should never really happen to us, because you're taking my money as a big bank, you're investing in businesses that eventually will fail. Yet when we are going to be bailed out, the government uses my taxes. So I'm losing on both ends to you, because you're a big organization, because you're a centralized platform. And that's when the idea of decentralizing money came in. I think that history just basically gives us an idea of what blockchain is. So that was the first application of blockchain technology. And over the years, over the last decade or 1.5 decades, we've seen that different applications have started coming up away from the Bitcoin blockchain. So different blockchains are beginning to, have already come up, and different application, different use cases have started springing up from just this simple idea of having a decentralized platform.
As you've said, Bitcoin is the first concrete application of blockchain. It is also today one of the most obviously famous cryptocurrencies right there. But now there is also countless other cryptocurrencies that exist. So putting aside the scams and the failed project, why are there so many cryptocurrencies? Are they competitors, or are they trying to solve different issues?
Oh yes, amazing question. So I think that it has to be the last option that you mentioned. We have so many issues that need to be solved. So a lot of these platforms, I wouldn't say all, a lot of them are looking out to solve and provide services that people actually need, and ends the proliferation of different cryptocurrencies. And some of them are even projects and tokens of different projects. And if you look critically at these cryptocurrencies, some of them actually have good use cases and good utilities away from the ones that do not have, which we call shitcoins. There are a lot of cryptocurrencies and tokens that actually have utility. Take for example the Ethereum, which is actually a smart contract platform, or which can be used for smart contracts, which can be used for purchasing non-fungible tokens, for example, which can be used to set up a lot. In fact, the utility is numerous. You know, the use cases that it can be applied for are so numerous. So a lot of the projects, there are many of them, Decentralised, and that's Mana. I don't want to do publicity for them. However, you know that there are a lot of them, and hence the proliferation. Now, that may be some danger at the end of the day, because if you look at it, we are going into a new system of money. So why have a whole lot of them? But I can say, like I said before, that there's a reason why each one of them are. They are basically solving different problems and being used for different use cases that serve different purposes.
So let's now talk about the situation in the African continent in regard to the ability to open a bank account and the access to financial services. Around 57% of the African population is unbanked today, which is a staggering number when you think about it. Not having a bank account is obviously penalizing in one's life at many levels. It makes it harder to save money, to invest money, to ask for loans, to send money, and so on. So you have been in the banking sector, so you know the intricacies of the systems and the situation in the African continent that justifies this situation. How would you explain that so many people are today unbanked in the African continent? And why did the traditional banking institutions fail to address effectively this situation?
You see, when it comes to Africa, we have basically poor infrastructure. We have poor financial and physical infrastructure, and I think that a lot of governments in the past, government of different countries, have come and with promises, and like people will say, Africa is a country because we face very similar problems, and a lot of our leaders have come and have promised to resolve these issues for us, and yes, most of them have failed, and some of them have been successful. Um, so I would say that it is very damning. However, that is why we have the potential to pick up Bitcoin and run, and we can literally leapfrog so many other continents, because we have a lot of challenges that this technology can practically solve for us. We have different use cases that it can be applied, that it can be applied to. And cryptocurrency itself is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just one thing that is just one problem. I mean, is one solution, excuse me, to a lot of the problems that we have. Moving ahead in terms of Africa, we also see that there's corruption. There's a lot of corruption, and this has led to lack of trust. So Africans basically do not trust the system. They do not trust their government, and this has led to a lot of other problems that we are facing on the African continent. And I do not think that these problems can be solved in the nearest future, because these are inherent and traditional problems that have plagued the African continent. However, I believe that we can start from somewhere. We can stay determined to start solving each of these problems one after the other.
So we have spoken about the attributes of the blockchain technology, that it is decentralized, that it is an infrastructure that works with computers. So all you need to have access to it is, by definition, an internet connection. You have also talked about the fact that unlike other systems where you need to have trust in an institution, blockchain technology is by definition something in which you only have to trust the system. But what is the current situation of the adoption of cryptocurrencies in the African continent?
I think that we've had very very good adoption over the last couple of years. We've seen that Africans are leading in terms of peer-to-peer transactions. We are leading in terms of onboarding of new users. We are leading in terms of basically adoption of cryptocurrency. These with advantages and also disadvantages, because one of the disadvantages that we found out that so many Africans have gotten, have been scammed, and this is not surprising. However, with some of the advantages that we have, in that we're able to get remittances even faster. Africa is a continent that is so dependent on remittances for the economy for the running of the economy, because so many Africans have to travel to other places, other continents of the world in search of better life, in search of better platforms to improve themselves. So this is not only economic, it could also be social. And this set of people have families, friends, and business partners at home here in Africa. So we find out that Africa basically enjoys a lot of remittances, and the traditional financial system has not been able to provide a solution to the barrier of people being able to receive remittances easily. And that is what cryptocurrency brings. Like you mentioned, all you just need is access to internet, and yes, you're on your way. I do not need to present the certificate of my landed property, or a lot of those IDs, or anything that is really difficult for me to get. So cryptocurrency practically breaks that barrier, and the fact that its money is received speedily. So once you have a crypto wallet, you can easily get funds from anywhere all around the world in seconds, and also cheaper. I mean, at a cheaper rate. So, for example, when someone is sending you a particular amount in USD or pounds or euros or any other currency, any other foreign currency, you probably have to pay at least maybe 1% or 2% of the funds before the beneficiary can receive this fund. And also vice versa. If you're sending out from Africa, it's probably even more expensive, and cryptocurrency, or let me say blockchain technology, is basically here to take out the middleman. So it enhances, or it helps us to be able to get funds cheaper. It helps us to be able to send funds cheaper, and that exactly right there is one solution to one of the problems that we have in terms of receipt and sending of funds, or receipt of remittances, as the case may be. So I think that is where crypto actually comes in, and that is why you've had wide adoption. I'm sure you can check statistics and see that Africans are really, really, really jumping in on the crypto wagon.
So what are the major obstacles right now for an even bigger adoption of the technology today? The African population is very young. I think the median age is somewhere around 20 years old, and also very receptive to new technologies. Since the technology already exists, why don't we see a widespread adoption already? It is due to lack of education, infrastructure, policies.
Yeah, I agree with you. Education is number one, I would say, because I think that's why a lot of the crypto platforms have concentrated on user education first. I mean, people have to really understand exactly what they're doing, or what they are getting themselves into. And when it comes to Africa, there's not a lot of the populations that are literate. So we have to be as explicit as possible. There's not a lot of the population of Africa that has good education. So if you are coming in here, people have to have an idea of what exactly blockchain does, what is cryptocurrency, and it's fantastic to see that a lot of crypto platforms have adopted similar structures and similar policies in the African continent to first educate our people, let the people know exactly what this is about, and hopefully that helps to improve adoption. But then that's one barrier. The second barrier has to be government policies or government laws. Well, and you can't really blame any government for putting up an edge or putting up these kind of policies that do not allow for crypto to gain more adoption. So if you look at many African countries, most of them are either sitting on the fence or they are outrightly against cryptocurrency. And if you look at it from their own point of view, it's a new type of technology. It's relatively new, and it's one that is disrupting the centralized space. That's the traditional financial system. Is here to upset it. So if we've built a traditional system that has been around for hundreds of years, and a platform is just coming up and is upsetting it, definitely we always want to resist that kind of change. That's just natural, that's impulsive, and you would not blame the government for taking such laws or bringing in such laws and trying to build an edge against cryptocurrency for their citizens.
Olubunmi, do you believe that the traditional players, i.e. the banks, could have a role to play in the adoption of cryptocurrencies? Or does it have to be done by startups and disruptive projects?
Yes, I think that these people have a role to play. They basically have a role to play in the future. That is, these traditional platforms, financial systems, and different players in the industry. I think that everybody definitely has a role to play. And for banks or financial services platforms, they've been in the system for a while. They've done the dirty job, if you allow me to say that. They have the grassroots on lock. They've done a lot of grassroots work. They are more connected to the people compared to any other new platform coming on. So riding on the architecture would be very, very good. So I think that they have a role to play, but that doesn't mean that they actually required. If they do not get in on it as quick as possible, this technology will leave them behind. So as much as they are required, as much as they are needed in the ecosystem to catch in, to get in on it, to get in on blockchain, to start crypto adoption, of course, there is still a possibility of being left behind and leaving out startups to get the job done. So for Africa or for Nigeria, for example, you find out that the penetration has been great, but it could have been greater if, for example, the traditional financial systems and the big banks they've already adopted cryptocurrencies. But adoption definitely also depends, like I mentioned earlier, also depends on government disposition, because these people are regulated, they are heavily regulated. So definitely is whatever the government puts out that they are going to follow through with. However, yes, they are going to be helpful coming into the ecosystem, but then they are not exactly needed. If they decide not to come, they'll be left behind and leave the work for startups and other platforms.
And what do you think could be done today to accelerate the adoption of cryptocurrencies at many levels? So at the level of the population, but also at the governmental level?
Yes, I think it's just conversation. Like I would always say, the governments need to have start having conversations, start having forums where we begin to discuss adoption, where we begin to discuss the pros and the cons of adopting cryptocurrency, where we start to discuss how blockchain technology can affect or can move us forward, and what are going to be the disadvantages, what are the demerits that we are going to see. So that is really the first. We have to accept first that yes, this has come to stay. This type of technology is going to be beneficial to us. However, it may have a side effect. So let us come together. Let's discuss. Calling professionals, calling people that are enthusiastic about this technology. Let's have a forum where nobody insults anybody or says that. Let's just open our minds and see where we can walk through with this. And I mean, that is the number one. That's the way forward for us. And definitely with coming out of that is going to help you build policies. You're going to start having sandboxes that regulate crypto platforms and also blockchain startups. You're going to start encouraging people to start coming up with different solutions, different ideas. And that is you bringing up an entirely new ecosystem. You are encouraging a whole new ecosystem. And when you start to have that, you start having new players in the industry, you start seeing more funding, you start seeing investors coming in, to start investing in different types of platform, different startups. And that's a whole new type of, that just breeds, that's like a breath of fresh air and the way to improve adoption, both on user side and on institutional side.
As you've mentioned, we tend to speak about Africa as if it was one country because much of the issues that are faced are the same. So maybe African countries could work together in this journey for the adoption of those technologies.
Absolutely. I agree. Totally. Yeah. Totally.
So what is your vision for the African continent in the future? Africa do not obviously have to follow the same path as Western countries, and the situation of the African continent countries could be actually leveraged to implement emerging technologies rapidly and broadly. So how do you think things could look like in the future if those emerging technologies are leveraged in the right way?
Okay, by emerging technologies, I would say that maybe you mean blockchain technology and the like.
Blockchain technology, yes, and AI and IoT, yeah, but mainly blockchain. Decentralized technologies.
Yes. I think I mentioned earlier that quick adoption or early adoption and early adoption of blockchain technology on the African continent will help us, leapfrog every other continent, because we have a lot of problems and challenges that use cases of blockchain can solve compared to any other continent all over the world. So say in the next 10 years or maybe in the nearest future, what I see is every other continent coming to learn how Africa has developed so quick, leveraging on a technology like blockchain. And yes, everybody has a role to play. The government, the people, companies, institutions, individuals, everybody has a role to play. And me, for one, I'm very, very optimistic because I think that blockchain is one that really waits for nobody at the end of the day. Look at what crypto has done to us in Africa, and see how fast we've moved on with it, even without government signing. The governments have decided not to allow, across many African countries, that is, not to allow people to do transactions through the financial system. However, we still have the highest number of transactions, that's person to person and peer to peer transactions. So it shows you that this is type of technology is decentralized in every sense. So it has allowed people to come on board without the need without waiting for their government. However, say governments decide to say that they would like to be in on this, and they can actually design regulatory platforms or regulatory rules and laws that guide crypto adoption. I see a continent that is going to evolve to be, that is going to develop so swiftly, such that every other continent is going to start looking at us. And in practical terms, say banks decide to come together. Every top African bank says, oh yes, let's look at how this blockchain technology can help us with cross-border payment, for example. That's just one use case. And we'll see how we can do things cheaper. We see how we can eliminate middlemen, how we can eliminate unnecessary platforms and the unnecessary hassles that do not help people to do transactions as swiftly as possible. And banks decide to adopt this. This is going to be so explosive. That's just one use case. Every other platform to says, oh yeah, let's see what blockchain technology can help us to do in terms of smart contracts. Okay, let's see what blockchain technology can help us to do in terms of records, land records, for example. All these things coming up all at the same time, springing up, and the applications are just always usually seamless. It's like a no-brainer. Yes, you might need technical partners and all of that, but once you say that you want to start adopting these things, it solves so many problems. So the problem of corruption when it comes to real estate and land records, all of that is already out. And imagine what that can help us to do as a continent. You're saving more money, you're eliminating corruption, you're improving people's livelihood, you're improving people's trust, which is one of the biggest problems of Africa. The people do not trust the government, the people do not trust authority. And that has led to has evolved to so many other problems that we might not like to mention. So I see a continent that is going to be one that the world is going to look out for and want to learn things from us.
Olubunmi, you have mentioned at some point that one of the obstacles that is faced today is the lack of education in regard to blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. What advice would you give to people who would like to get started in the blockchain journey and who would like to educate themselves on this technology? So you have said that you educated yourself independently. So how could people educate themselves and know what would be the next steps?
Okay, so in terms of getting into blockchain, I think the barrier to entry is very, very low, because there is so much information and everybody is learning at the same time. So I don't think when people say they are professionals, I always smile because this is a technology that is evolving. It's developing so rapidly. So you probably would not be a professional yet. You would say that if you had something that has fully developed and you have every knowledge. So it's good, for every other person, because the barrier to entry is very low. So if you really have interest in blockchain technology, all you need to do is just pick up your phone or pick up your computer and Google it. That's the first step. Or you go ahead and start making connections with people, start having groups, start having conversations. I think it's just the interest and enthusiasm that would help you a lot. Me, for one, I would advise you to first understand it. And understanding it has to do with just getting as much information as you can get. You can dedicate maybe 1 hour or 2 hours every day, like I did then, to just learning about what the technology is, what it can do. Also learn about the demerits, learn about the use cases, learn about the applications. And then, yes, you start building your connections. Go on different platforms. There are several social media platforms that you can see groups and individuals that also have similar interests, and start getting to understand, start getting to know people. Everywhere is beginning to open up. So I'm sure that there will be different forums, physical conferences, that have to do with blockchain technology and every other new technologies coming, emerging technologies. So yes, the first step is recognize your interest. It's really what you're interested in. Start learning. And there are so many free resources, so many free platforms out there that can help you to learn about blockchain technology and emerging technologies generally.
what would be important is also to have an experience firsthand, to experience with the technology and try to send cryptocurrencies, receive cryptocurrencies, mint an NFT. Beyond the theory, what would also be important and the power of the technology is that it is permissionless. So by definition, anyone could access it.
Yes, exactly. Totally agree.
So, Olubunmi, how could people follow you and learn more about your work?
So you can follow me on my most active social media platform, which is where I met Yasin. So glad to have met him, come across him. That's LinkedIn. So just search my name, Olubunmi. That's my first name, Olubunmi, and Fabanwo. That's Fabanwo. So send me a connection request. Let's start having conversations. I'm always open to that. You can also follow me on Twitter, follow me on Discord, or Instagram. If you like to be informal, that's Olubxnmi. That's Olubunmi, but instead of U, an X.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Olubunmi, for your time, and it would be great to have you back on Tomorrow.Africa.
I will be so glad to be back. I hope that we can have like further conversations with and speak about, the next time we are going to be speaking. I'm sure that so many new technology, new use cases, or there'll be news in the blockchain scene, in the blockchain space, because I'm sure that governments are beginning to look at blockchain and look at crypto too, and are starting to see that it's here to stay. So definitely policies are going to be springing up maybe this year or next year. And this is me predicting. I do not have any inside information, but yes, I will be so glad to come back here and let's see where we are, where we are coming from, and where we can get to. So thank you so much for having me on Tomorrow.Africa. Tomorrow.Africa is here today. Tomorrow.Africa is going to be here tomorrow. And I hope that we'll be able to achieve a lot with platforms like this. And I really appreciate you. Appreciate you doing this. This is the start of something really, really big. So guys, look out for Tomorrow.Africa.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to visit our website, Tomorrow.Africa, and subscribe to our channels to be updated about the future episodes. We publish 2 episodes per month at the 1st and 15th of each month, so stay tuned for the next ones. And until then, stay curious, stay ambitious, and see you tomorrow.